Uh, Thank you so much for sitting in on this presentation, and thanks for the introduction, David. And kudos also to you and the team for doing an awesome job converting this workplace conference to this virtual environment. Really good job. Enjoyed the in-person ones in New York, but awesome job converting it. With this title, I really wanted to bring to life the journey of this training and learning ecosystem that I built in this corporate environment, and did so in an organic manner to kind of plant seeds of modern learning concepts like flipped learning, blended learning, micro learning, and just the importance of applying adult learning theories and so forth. None of that existed within this startup come corporate setting. And so there was an intentionality behind the strategies to kind of move the strategies to a culture. And paramount to this was to kind of get this going right at the start with new hires. And so you'll see, I'll move on to the next slide and then kind of show you that the outline that I'm going to follow here. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and then about the company, talk about where we were and where we're at right now, and then show you the training proposals, and then take you to how those were brought into action, as well as some of the evaluation pieces in terms of learning analytics that was also developed to measure all of that. So a little bit about myself. Like David said, I graduated from Teachers College, and I currently teach there. I teach a mobile learning course, a series of mobile learning courses that I actually introduced as part of my dissertation work. I conceived of it actually in 2005 already, pre-iPhone era, and you know, I then co-designed it with somebody and introduced that at Columbia, and then had the good fortune of also doing consultancy work with the Mayor's Office of Adult Education to kind of bring some more mobile learning to populations, target audiences that the Mayor's Office of Adult Education was supporting as well. Additionally, there was some work that I did with YERUP, which is a national training organization, and there we brought to life a E&M learning ecosystem. We used to be in 8 cities, and in 2012 they were still very much paper-based, and we grew this digital diffusion across the country to really kind of exploit blended learning, micro learning, mobile learning, and blended learning, again, concepts that were introduced at that level. So that also gave us some funds that we could collect, raised revenue through additional contracts that we were able to sign because of our E&M learning efforts. So, and I'm sharing all of this, also the award from the ILA, which I'm very proud of, as well as this MOOC that we participated in, where we actually taught computer programming to people who had never been exposed to any computer programming. We participated in this AT&T MOOC, and our 20 participants actually outperformed all others that had been invited to this to that project. Also, one of the other mobile learning things was a mobile health initiative that I created at Teachers College, and I got a chance to present that at UNESCO, and also very proud of that work. And I'm sharing all of that just to kind of show how different the next batch of work is. Now, this is a little bit about MesoClick. I started with MesoClick in 2017. You can read that it's a data governance company, and very unique data model that it uses. Instead of having disparate systems across a network feeding in from different systems, MesoClick really does a phenomenal job of bringing all of this together in one universal manner to really give you high fidelity data without having to stitch it all together like a piece of patchwork that sometimes pollutes the data. Furthermore, this is the old website of Mesoclick, which kind of shows you what they focused on, what the focus has been. And my training was, the training that I had to develop was around the data model and the app itself. The company currently focuses on asset management and life insurance investments. And so the data around that was what the focus was. This is the new website, so if you go to it, it's not going to have that previous one. But I wanted to show you that there's a new shift coming in to kind of refocus what the company does and to really truly showcase its multi-industry capability. So while there is a focus on asset management and insurance investment, the data governance model can really be applied to any system. So just think about various organizations and how they will feed maybe payroll data from ADP, and then they'll feed other data from Taleo or Workday. And those are HR examples, but Mesoclick can do all of that in one go. So at a fraction of the cost, I should add. So really powerful. So in 2017, I started with the company and I introduced these various training protocols. So the next set of slides are kind of going to use their template a little bit, but this was introduced because there was no real staff onboarding, no real training. The training didn't really have a blended or virtual learning approach. There was a high reliance on in-person interaction, in-person engagement, and the material was not necessarily in one place. You can see here that there was a real focus on kind of a linear training model, which is these monodirectional lectures that we had. There was no way to revisit material beforehand in a flipped manner, nor to revisit the material maybe in post manner. You'd have to wait afterwards for it to be emailed to you. There was also a lack of version control at the time, and very little to no user feedback on the training documentation. And where there was training documentation, you definitely have click exhaustion, trying to just get to one thing to really understand one concept. So as I explained in the previous slide, just to go a little deeper, there was also a lot of training by subject matter experts, phenomenal training by them, but they always started with deep dive complex examples. And the historical overview existed, but it wasn't necessarily shared. And I thought that should be built into it. And you'll see how I've done that later on. There was definitely a fire hose of information. You would have like 3 to 4 days of 8 to 10 hour training sessions, all in one go, and you were expected to understand everything immediately, with no real mix of training modalities. It was just these monodirectional lectures. So the idea then was to see how can we scaffold this learning. How could we address, the fact that there was no real central repository for the training materials and no hands-on while the lectures were going on or while you were doing your training. Initially, I was going to focus on those first 3 blocks that you see there, but pretty soon realized that I needed to focus on the next 2 blocks, even though I thought that the first would give us that kind of foundation. But if I built the 4 and 5, I could go back to number 1 and really offer experiential learning and better training with for higher retention. The training issue that we also had was that we needed we had needs for 2 training audiences. One was our new hires as well as our clients. Sometimes our new hires would go without training. They would start And in one instance, I think a year had gone by when we hadn't done any training. And so you're kind of learning about the app, about the data governance model, piecemeal here and there with check-ins and so forth. And you had to reach out to people. Again, you did have the 3 to 4 day kind of flood of information, but how much of that would stick and how much of that would be tied to hands-on practice lessons. So as we built this, the idea that I had was, okay, how do we increase the currency of the training by making it applicable to both our new hires, and at the same time, whatever issues we find with our training for our new hires, we plow that into the training for the clients, so that the clients will get an even higher fidelity of training with no issues and errors that's already been ironed out. One of the things that we then were able to start with, and that people got excited about in terms of the multimodal training that I showed early on, was the videos. And so the concept of videos was new to the organization. And while there was a push for hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long videos, we convinced the CEO and the president that these should be about 1 minute to 2 minutes long. They latched onto that. I actually sat with the CEO a great deal and then worked with him to develop the scripts on that. And I'll say a little bit more about the videos later on as well. One other thing that we thought was crucial was to kind of show a new hire that, one, we were prepared to receive them, two, that they're going to have a welcome packet that introduces them to the company, as well as what they can expect in terms of the training and where to find training material and documentation. So just a quick poll there. As you can see, I'm using the Excel, and which is what the company uses. And so I just want to know if any of you use Excel for all of your planning, all of your proposals, presentation drafts, and mock-ups of app design in your company. And I'll pause a little bit and take a sip of water while you answer that. Okay, awesome. It's good to see. We'll wait for a few more. It's useful to know. Great. So yeah, so glad to see that there's a good amount of you in that also used Excel. This was new to me, but quickly had to latch onto that and present everything in Excel and switch from all other previous methods. And this then allowed for quicker buy-in when I presented this to the CEO or the president of the company or any other C-suite members. So that helped. The other thing that we wanted to do, or a whole bunch of other methods and approaches that we wanted to bring in, was one, wanted to introduce the concept of self-directed learning to, as part of the applying the adult learning theories here, and in a very practical manner. The other one, as you've heard, there was a great need for pre-work, so training would be really, really useful. Making things available beforehand so you can kind of build a prior knowledge or help people to tap into any prior knowledge and make associations and transfer knowledge from elsewhere. And then also, how could we, instead of this flood of information you hear me talk about, how could we kind of also bring in some micro-learning? The automated is something that down the line we were hoping to program for. And so, hopefully that will still come to life. But the peer-to-peer support was there. The regular managerial check-ins was already something that was there. But with the training, you could then actually say where you were at. And you'll see how we leveled out the training from a level 1 down to a 5, up to a 5. And they could then report that to the manager, or the manager could check in with me to see how they were doing and where they were at. The other one was, having some sort of system within a learning management system where they could ask questions. And ultimately, that actually then got to live inside of our app like everything else, and you'll see how we got there. This is one of the ways of how we got there. We knew that to fix the disparate locations of all of the training, the version control issues that we had, we needed some place, a single repository to kind of host this material. To bring it to life, I thought, okay, maybe we should go with a learning management system. But after many, many conversations with our CEO, we came back to the fact that it would just be best if it was in our app, if all of this lived within our app. And I like that idea because it would cater for incidental learning of our complex data model and the data governance that our app hosted, instead of having to go outside of it. It would mimic the user interface and the user interaction. The other thing that we needed to think about was the authorware. And we were also thinking about authorware and a hybrid LMS. The costs around that was too prohibitive for us. The training, like I said, was very, very new. The training concepts were new. And so not wanting to invest in that and also thinking about it in terms of a sustainable way, it's not something we wanted to invest in. But we did land on, like I said, hosting it in our app, in a secure section of our app. And then second, if we were going to do anything in terms of authorware, another criteria matrix that I established here, as you see on the left-hand side, comparing these different tools. And we landed on this open source software that could integrate really, really well. It's WordPress, and it could really integrate well with our HTML5 built app. Focusing on the onboarding as part of the proposal was just, okay, these are the steps that we need to follow, check-ins that we need to do. So as simple as that and as basic as that, with some of the things that we needed to kind of plant seeds with. And then again, the saying to managers and either they do that or the training people who do this, build out a roadmap of, okay, so, how often do you need to do a check-in? And ultimately, there was a yearning from my side to kind of map this out from the first day to the first year. And in the early stages, we landed on from the first day to the first month, and then gauge from there how the person was doing. So as you can see here, this was, I tapped into this kind of structure where we kind of said, okay, what can we do during pre-orientation? What can we do during day one? What is the expectation of the manager and for the new hire during week one? And where do we want to see that new hire in 3 weeks to 90 days? Ultimately, most managers wanted their staff to be up and running within 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and then do an assessment from there to kind of check how they're doing. There was also a need to evaluate the training. None of that existed, like I said. Nothing about how the structured content was. It was all word of mouth, nothing that they could fill in, nothing that they could comment on. And so as we were building this multimodal material, it was also really, really crucial to kind of make sure that there was either a midway check as well as an endpoint check to see how people are doing. And you'll see here some intangible values that we wanted to measure as well, to see how the training impacted, not just from a knowledge building perspective, but also whether it reduced stress or whether even just they learned the unique data governance vocabulary that we had and the mesospeak that we talked as our vocabulary is known. We also wanted to make sure that, how do we refine the processes around our orientation and our introductions? Were they introduced to other teams to help break down these departmental or team silos? How quickly did they get access to our? We're very, very secure. Our security protocols are extremely, extremely strict. And so everything runs through a virtual machine. And just to get access to that, you have to go through certain steps. And so we always wanted to refine that. So, we'd ask people to rate that as well, and also whether there were enough hands-on material. So the values that you see there were these listening tours that I did and pre-surveys that I did with veteran employees and new employees to kind of gauge where we were at in terms of all of that. So here comes the part where all of those proposals that I just talked about then came to life. So you had the in-app training, and so here is another poll. If that's going to come up soon, it might show up here. If hopefully you can show the next poll for me, please. So how many people in your experience is normally involved in scripting, creating and editing a video? I was listening to Laura Schreiber's voiceover presentation yesterday, and fascinating, and really enjoyed that presentation. It brought me back to my work on planting the seeds of using videos for training, and then also just wanted to comment on it. But I wanted to hear from the conference attendees how many people are normally involved in creating a video. Okay. So thanks to those who responded there, and so I see that 43% say 4 more. So the reason why I asked for that is because there was only one person involved in this, and it was myself. And yes, I collaborated with the CEO greatly to script, because he had the most intimate and deeper knowledge of the data governance model. But then having to take what he said, write that up as a script, and then do all the screen images, the overlays, the animations and everything, the voiceover as well. So all of that was done by one person. And then putting all of that in the app was really, really important. One of the other things we built right off the bat was a visual guide of the app and the terminology that we use within the app. The previous versions did not have any hypertext capability of jumping to next items. You know, to kind of turn this not just into a once-off piece of training tool, training material, but to also be able to use it as a reference material you can go back to, and you can jump to any of these hypertext links at the bottom here. Very, very simple, or you could search for items. Sometimes people forget about these things. And so I really wanted to make sure that during training, we even showed that in our initial introduction to the training. This is what the training looked like in its first iteration, and as you can see, it's a little overwhelming. And so we introduced the use of animations here, but our app takes everything that you build in Word or in PowerPoint in this case, and it converts it into a PDF for security reasons. And with that, of course, your animations die. And so what I had to do here was I had to use a little bit of Visual Basic script to maintain the animations. And so instead of seeing this in one go, you saw it one by one. So that really, really helped. We had 2 ways of seeing the videos. The first way you saw on the left-hand side panel there, you could still see it over here, so you could access the videos over on this side. But you could also have these videos in this Netflix, YouTube library fashion. And again, you could quickly jump to something just-in-time learning. If you're on your phone commuting somewhere, you could look for a video and you could just search for that video. If you heard a concept during a meeting, you could also just check it out there. So hosting both of that, but again, it opened up in the pseudo iframe that you see, so you never really left the app. So we, the training videos actually turned out pretty well, and so much so that we actually then used it for our demos, and it was demoed to potential clients and existing clients to kind of show them everything is within the app, which the clients also really appreciated and enjoyed. So here are some of the training philosophies that we share. So one of the things that we had to build was, as you heard me say, there was no place, no central repository, and we had access security protocol issues that we needed to define. One way we overcame that was to build this SharePoint training site. In the SharePoint training site, there was also an opportunity to kind of share with the rest of the company, as well as the new hires, why the training looks like it looks. Why do we take these approaches? How did this come to life? Why was it informed in this way? So you saw all of that here, and then on top here you had all of these other tabs with training material as well as material that helped to build affinity with the company. And this was just another example of taking text that was shared with me and then making it aesthetically pleasing in a very graphical way. What you're seeing here is our environments, our testing environments. So we go from our developers testing environments to our user acceptance testing environments to our client testing environments over here in camp. And then you go into the production. So by the time you get to the production environment for our clients, everything is tip-top. And when a new hire starts, they hear these terminologies, but it's being thrown at them. And so yeah, they can always come back to this. And this is not just available in the app, but it's also available in the SharePoint training site, so they could kind of get this pre-learning going. So with the videos as well, they could access the videos there. And then to further build this kind of social connectedness and affiliation with one another and the company and break down those silos, we started building out, this new hire bio page. And so people could check, the valuable experience that everybody else brought to the company and points of connection with one another, so that when they reach out to somebody, they have something that they could connect to and kind of latch onto that and build a relationship. I've fuzzed out these photos a little bit, but the photos here that's also in the SharePoint training site was showcasing how the office was built a couple of years ago and who the veteran employees were that were involved in that. And that not just gave a pride to those veteran employees, but also a pride to the new employees to kind of tap into, so that they know who these long-standing staff members are and the hard work that had gone into it. The other thing that we built was this training map that you saw earlier on that we now converted into a control sheet. And so yeah, just checking if they have everything that they need, like you saw earlier on, to get all the tools that they need to do their job and to check everything off. And then from there, we move to the next set in the tabs at the bottom here. You'll see that they are, okay, so if you know these 65 terms of our data governance model in the app, then you're good to go, and you could rate your knowledge after going through the training material, and then they could revisit that material with me if they scored themselves a 2 or a 3, and we could get them up to a 4 or a 5. This next tab showed how we scaffolded the learning, and previously we had this user acceptance testing page in Excel, but it was just a scattered list, unsequenced, of all the things that you needed to check in the app, that you were expected to check in the app if things were working. So I took that and rearranged it in a manner that kind of showed, okay, so when you start, you have viewing access, and as you progress, you're getting edit access. And so let's tap into that and kind of show you what we need to do to get you up and running with understanding how our app works and your work with it.
Too much. We are just about getting to the end of the time, even without time for Q&A. So maybe just take a couple more minutes. There's so much to show, and if you could share your slides after as well, we can put that in the proceedings. So if you can take about the next 2-3 minutes, then do what you can.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we also had some quizzes in there, and we used Camtasia, but it was very limited. And so this is where the open source videos came in. It offered us a lot more, in terms of Bloom's taxonomy. We could hit higher order thinking. And then I just wanted to, I'm going to skip through to the evaluation just to show some of the things that we did. It's not skipping. Anyway, we had, so here's some of the evaluations that we did. We checked with people beforehand what their knowledge was about the app. And then we also checked what their ratings were on the documentation and the videos, as well as intangible aspects. I did have a poll question, but we are running out of time there. And so here you can see just on those intangibles how new hires felt about the training, the knowledge that they were building, as well as just their morale, their confidence, and understanding of the vocabulary that came with it. And so other analytics that we tapped into was the videos and the region. We could tap into this in terms of the various regions and where people were watching the videos, the hot zones of those videos, where they stopped, and so on. So yeah, we made that available in the SharePoint site as well for transparency's sake. But I think I'll pause there, seeing that I'm going way over time. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at that email address there.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks so much. So we'll leave his email address up for a second, and there's a lot there. Will you be able to share your slides after I think we have them, but if we can include them in the conference proceedings, and if there's anything there that we can do, then people can scroll through the rest as well and catch up on everything else. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Dominic. You've got a huge, it's such a significant strategy and so many components that there's not time to get to all of it. But thanks for taking the time to walk us through some. So there's really a lot there. So good to see you as always, and thanks once again. So we'll
thanks, David.
Stick around in the chat. All right, great to talk to you. All right, I'll see you.